That's weird. Mine's taking a while too.
Yeah, mine's live right now. So we can just wait for yours before actually getting into anything. All
We're good
right,
now.
fantastic. Okay, so I'm here with Sinatra Says. The history leading up to this conversation is pretty straightforward. Basically, I made that skeptic challenge video. Sinatra did a little response to it on a live stream, just kind of off the cuff. And we ended up talking a bit on Twitter, I think, as per usual, because the horny vegan was creating a bunch of shit. And then,
As he tends to do.
yeah. There was, I forget who it was. One person was convinced that I'm actually the horny vegan or thought that was plausible. I think it was cognitive thought. Anyway, so we're just going to shoot the shit on veganism. It's not really a debate. Might turn into one. That seems to happen 99% of the time. But, we're going to just talk about the topic in general. Is there anything you want to say?
The first thing I wanted to bring up was exactly like the horny vegan. Does that make you feel bad or make you upset in any way, shape, or form when you see people like that go around calling other people names because they didn't talk to you yet?
It makes me extremely uncomfortable if they are speaking for me. Now, that guy, he doesn't claim to speak for me. So, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't do what he does, but I don't necessarily, doesn't represent me. So it's not the biggest deal.
Because last live stream I had, he was in the chat like, "You're a fucking coward. Fuck you. You won't talk to Ask Yourself." That. I was like, I did set up something with Ask Yourself. It's in my events. You can come on here and have a chat with me. Yeah, he's like, "Fuck you. You're a coward," and just leaves.
Yeah, are you just looking for a condemnation of that behavior? Because I don't support that. Obviously, yeah, no, I don't support that.
Because I saw it in what's his name's Count Dankula's DMs too from Militant Vegan. Now I'm convinced those two are the same people.
I frankly wouldn't be surprised. I mean, they both have the same icon. That's enough to tell you. No, just kidding. But it could be the same person. But yeah, with Count Dankula, same kind of thing. I mean, his video response, I think, was pretty ridiculous because he almost, I don't know if he intended to, but his response seemed to suggest that I sent the message or that I was behind the message. And the comment section confirmed that that's what a lot of people took from what he said. And it's like, that's when I really don't like it because people can be assholes if they want to. I don't support it. I don't condone it. But it's when they say they're doing it on my behalf that I'm really frustrated with it because, it's not on my behalf.
Yeah, you seem like a big boy who can talk for himself.
I like to think so. I mean, I would hope so.
I mean, we set this up all on our own.
Yeah, wow. It was so difficult. I mean, sending back and forth a few messages.
Yeah, it's fucking hard, dude.
Yeah, let's see how many people are gathered here before we hop right into this. How is your week been? Or actually, better question instead of small talk. What got you onto YouTube?
Honestly, it was the what's it called? What's that fucking guy's name?
Steve Shops.
The Matt Toller incident.
the what incident?
Matt Toller. You remember the guy who landed the spaceship on the asteroid while it was moving?
Shirtgate.
Shirtgate is what got me super into all this stuff. But my first YouTube video was Hillary Clinton's talk on the alt-right.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got you. So you're really coming from the anti, crazy progressive bullshit angle.
I don't want to call it anti anything. I'd rather call it pro common sense.
Well, I'm fine with that. But I mean, you obviously oppose the radical progressive insanity if you're making fun of the alt-right speech or coming out against Shirtgate or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, pro common sense sounds
what about
also fine. Okay, well, I initially got on with a video on veganism. And I mean, I've talked about a few other things. For the record, I don't know if you've looked at my content, but we're on the same page generally politically, probably, in terms of opposing that kind of crazy shit, at least. But yeah, veganism got me on.
Okay, right on. Mm-hmm. So I know we're going to, at some point, have to tiptoe around the morality debate, but I don't really want to tiptoe around that. I will concede that point to you right now. There is absolutely a moral high ground to being a vegan or a vegetarian.
That is very close to exactly the kind of acknowledgement I want. But I would just look for it in a bit clearer terms. Would you agree that there is no logically consistent basis for supporting human rights and denying animal rights? Basic
Well,
rights.
it depends what you would consider animal rights. Like, I detest factory farming in every way, shape, and form. But if you have free-range chickens in your yard, are those still being subjugated to the same awful animal rights while not being a vegan?
Okay, so there's two questions there. The first is like, what rights are we talking about? And then the second is the specific example of the backyard chickens. So I guess I'll take them in reverse order. With the backyard chickens, you're really looking at the kind of stuff that's happening behind the scenes. Like, what are you doing with the male chicks who are born at birth who are useless? What about when the chicken's egg output drops? I think that also confining them is not the most ethical thing to do. I don't really support that. But I would definitely grant you that a backyard chicken is nowhere near as unethical as a factory farm.
Yeah, but any chicken coop I've ever seen in a backyard, they like open the coop in the morning so that the birds don't get stupid and get taken by hawks at night. But they open the coop in the morning and just kind of let the chicken go eat bugs or whatever chickens do all day. Then they go back in. As far as I know, most people just keep the male chicks if it's in someone's backyard because they're still useful. They impregnate the female chicks.
Yeah, I mean,
and they protect kind of in a chicken way.
Well, okay. I also I want to hit your other question, which is, and we can come back to that, which is just what rights. I'm just talking pretty much about properly basic rights. Like, we're talking about the right to life, the right not to be exploited. We're not talking about things like the right to religious freedom or the right to vote or, anything like that.
Yeah, I'll take that point for sure.
Okay. And then with the chickens, yeah, I mean, like, we can just kind of talk about it in the abstract instead of trying to talk about the practical details of what most farmers do. I mean, I'm not sure exactly how they do all these things. But generally speaking, if you're not infringing on the chicken in any kind of way, I don't oppose it. But I mean, I think it's hard to make a case that you're not infringing on them at all if you're confining them and restricting their freedom of movement so you can take their eggs. But a little point I'll make before you respond, I would just say we're also talking, I don't like when debates start on this kind of turf, because right now we're talking about an issue that's, it's like it's an ethical issue, but it's not massive. It's like if we started talking about something like animal experimentation, where it seems like there's a plausible justification, or like killing insects, which we have to do to some extent. There's lots of these cases where it's more ethically gray. So I usually seek kind of a admission on like the really clear ethical questions before moving into gray areas with somebody. You can respond before we keep going.
I understand that, but like I said before, I'm completely against factory farming. I contribute as little as possible to it. I don't buy red meat. I don't really eat red meat. If I do eat meat, it's usually chicken or maybe some kind of fish. But
okay, so
I have a farm, maybe 10 miles away from me, it has a slaughterhouse, and it kills cows and all that stuff. But the whole life of the cow is spent outdoors, going in when it wants to. It has a good life for an animal. There's no predators coming after it.
Okay.
The life is just cut short by the need for food.
Yeah, now that's the kind of ground that I would way rather start on, because taking eggs, I mean, once you go with the egg situation to kind of like a philosophical extreme, like a reductio, you're going to get to a situation where you're basically talking about something that's as unethical as like stealing candy from a baby. It's like, you could probably say it's unethical, but it's like, if the baby doesn't suffer at all, it forgets the candy in 2 seconds. It's like, yeah, it's unethical, but how unethical? It's probably not that bad. I'd way rather start with the kind of stuff you're talking about, which, when you talk about a slaughterhouse, even if it's a backyard slaughterhouse, you're talking about stabbing something to death. So that would be a better starting point for me. So, I mean, what I would hold there, and again, I'm still trying to, you started this out by giving some level of admission that you're against some of this stuff, that you would say veganism is a morally superior position. So what I'm trying to get to
I don't think
is,
there's any debating that.
Yeah, no, me either, obviously. But I think what I'm trying to get out of you, just so it's clear, you don't think I'm trying to drop gotchas, I just want to end up getting a clearer admission here that doing things to animals that you wouldn't support being done to yourself, if you were equalized to the animal in all the relevant ways, that those are unethical, because that's the kind of position that leads to veganism. So with the specific example of just stabbing a backyard cow to death, I mean, I would hold the position that, you know, you're arguing that the quality of life that the animal has justifies killing it needlessly. So you probably wouldn't accept in the human context that if you give a human a very good life, it becomes okay to kill them. So I would say that that is hypocritical to hold that position. I won't say hypocritical. Maybe that implies some level of maliciousness on your part. It's inconsistent to say, okay, well, good life does justify killing the animal.
What's your opinion on the death penalty?
I don't support it for the same
because
reasons.
It's basically the same thing. You're given a decent life, 3 hots and a cot, but your life's cut early. But with animals, I think it does come down to the experience. And there's way more reasons I can justify this other than the animals have different experiences than humans. I'm not going to get into the whole animals don't feel pain thing because that's clearly retarded.
Okay, well that's good. Some people are dead serious on that. I have heard people claim that plants are sentient and animals are not.
That's a new one.
Yeah, I know. That's the extreme. Usually you just get one or the other of those two statements. Animals aren't sentient, like you were talking, or plants are sentient. But when you get them both as like the combo deal, you're talking to a full retard.
Well, there's definitely some cause to say that plants are aware of their environment because certain plants, when they get eaten, they send a pheromone downwind, so the other plants change their flavor so they don't get eaten. Uh-oh. Don't look at this. Haha, stopped it. I don't know where he went. Uh-oh. SpaghettiOs.
Sorry, as you know, my thing is notorious for dropping, so I'm sorry about that. Do you want to finish what you were saying there?
But there is some level to say that plants are aware of their world around them.
Oh yeah.
So to say they're totally without life or without experience is also not true.
Okay, well, I would say they're totally without life and experience and awareness, but I think that we're just using terms differently because I would definitely acknowledge the examples of plant intelligence that you would talk about. Like if you're going to talk about whether it's releasing some kind of chemical or like, you know, reacting to fire with an electric signal or, you know, any of these things, those are reactions. But the words awareness and experience, those imply subjective reality, like a first person subjective awareness. So I would call those biological reactions, like very...
Well, do animals have awareness of self?
Yeah, I think...
They don't have awareness of mortality.
Well, wait, but they have awareness of mortality. I mean, I think it's a hard thing to talk about exactly how much animals are aware of, but they're certainly sentient beings. You'd probably grant that, right? Like you think, you know...
No, they are.
Yeah, and you know what I mean when I'm talking about a first person experience, right?
I think you're going to have to clarify it.
That's totally fine. Yeah. So when you're talking about a first person experience, you're talking about perceiving the world as a subject. So when you're talking about, you know, a plant reacting to a, you know, whether it's a predator noise that you record a caterpillar chewing on a leaf or whether it's fire or something, those are all things that we could program into a computer. And we would understand that the computer is reacting to the stimulus as programmed. But there isn't actually any reason to assume that the computer has a subjective reality and first-person experience in the same way as you would with a creature that has a brain and a nervous system and, you know, sense faculties like eyes that must create a, you know, a three-dimensional image somewhere in a subjective reality.
Okay. I think I'm following you.
Yeah, like, I mean, you understand how it's not like something to be a rock.
Yeah.
And you understand
I think
it is like something to be a cat or to be Sinatra.
Well, it's amazing to be. But I think that
it's not
that
like
goes out. I think that goes out the window when you start talking about fish, though, because it's proven that lobsters don't feel pain, but they move away from stimulus. They don't have a nervous system developed enough or a brain developed enough to feel pain.
Yeah.
But they move away from a nervous system. So is it okay for a vegan to eat a lobster because they don't feel any pain and you're not stabbing it to death? It just is done. Okay. It has no real life anything. It's just basically a moving rock.
Yeah, so there's a few things to that. So first there's going to be like some detailed knowledge of lobster anatomy and neurology and stuff that would be necessary to really answer the question of like what a lobster experiences and if they experience pain on any level. So I can't speak to that. Then there's the question of whether an absence of pain makes ending a subjective reality okay. And I would say no, that would create a contradiction with what you'd support for humans. Because if a human can't feel pain when you kill them, it doesn't suddenly become ethical to kill them. So lack of ability to feel pain can't per se justify killing.
But I thought your argument was that the pain is what's bad.
No,
So
no, no,
what,
no,
what about
no.
Terry Schiavo? Do you think Terry Schiavo should have been taken off the life support because she was just basically a vegetable?
I have to be honest, I don't know who Terry Schiavo is, but I can answer the question though. So it's not just about the pain. The pain is a moral factor. I mean, I think pain matters morally, but I don't think that pain has to be present for killing to be wrong. And I would bet that you don't either. I mean, you probably don't care if I painlessly snipe you. You don't want to die, right?
I'd prefer not to. I got you.
Yeah. I mean, well, so does the lobster in whatever sense it is doing shit. So, I just wouldn't be for killing the lobster needlessly because it's experiencing a subjective reality, and I can't see any good reason for just killing it. But I would also point out where we are now in the conversation, which is now we're orbiting around another gray area, which is we're pushing up on the boundaries of what is or isn't sentient, what can or can't feel pain. So I'm just going to reel it back to the kind of initial example that you put out, which was stabbing a backyard cow to death. Now,
well, you say stabbing to death, but in reality, what it is, it's just one of those No Country for Old Men that katunks right to the back of the head. It's not stabbing it to death. It's not a cholo running up on the cow like and stabbing it.
Well, to be clear, usually the ka-chunk is to knock it out. That's like a captive bolt pistol. And then the stab is what actually would kill the animal.
Oh, no, the way they explained it to me, the way they do it now, this is just this farm, but it is just the ka-chunk and it goes into the brain and kills it right away.
Okay, all right. So we will not use, I guess, stabbing in this case if stabbing isn't the cause of death. But either way, the point still applies. I don't think that giving something a good life justifies ka-chunking it in the head out of nowhere when you don't need to.
But would you prefer that over factory farming? If the farms are going to exist, that's just a thing of reality. Factory farming and farms are just going to always exist. So would you rather have there be a few thousand of these locally owned farms, or would you rather have it be giant factories where cows have been mistreated their whole life and then they're brought through a mile of piss and blood to the killing floor?
Well, there's two things there. So, I'll answer your question, obviously. So the first is you make an assumption in there when you say that farms are just part of reality. We don't know that farms will have to be part of reality. And you can always make that statement about anything that is currently part of reality and has been for a long time. And then to answer your question, you asked if I would rather have a bunch of family farms that are ka-chunking or a bunch of, horrid factory farms. Well, obviously, I would prefer the family farms, but the better option would be just not killing the animals at all, obviously.
Okay, and you kind of brought me into a segue to which I would like to talk about is
Sure.
the economics of it. The economics of veganism, because eating vegan isn't cheap. That's why there's specific stores for veganism, because of all the whatever that surrounds it, no eggs or whatever in the bread, all that. It's not cheap. The bread is more expensive. The food is just generally more expensive because the free market has dictated that most of the people who eat meat are upper middle class to upper class citizens. So let's do away with the farms. Just completely facetiously do away with the farms. And now we have a society that's all vegan. Okay. Mm-hmm. How are people who can only afford to eat like 2 McDoubles a day supposed to now afford the $6 a loaf bread or the $6 jug milk? How are they supposed to afford that?
Okay, so there's a whole ton of things there. So, I mean,
yeah, I kind of threw a lot at you there. Sorry.
Okay. I'm going to try to keep it all in my head. I mean, so there's the idea that veganism is expensive, which, I mean, if you're buying the processed foods, like if you're going to go buy a bunch of fucking field roast and Boo Moo and Gardein, yeah, that's going to cost you some money. But, a cheap vegan diet, you can eat grains, you can eat vegetables. I mean, it's not beyond the reach of, the average person. I have a book called Vegan on $4 a Day. The poorest countries in the world, they're eating, grains, rice, stuff like that. And there's also something else that you said in there that I didn't like. Oh yeah, that it's just the free market. Well, it's not.
Oh my God, I gotta put something here so when he drops out, no one can find the link to get in. If you find the link to get in, don't just let us have this conversation. I think I kind of pulled the rug out from under him when I conceded.
Okay, I'm back. All I can say, guys, is Patreon, higher quality internet. So so how much did I get through there? Did you
left off at the rice?
Okay, so I was just saying you can eat a cheap vegan diet. It's buying the processed things that cost a lot. The cheapest poorest countries in the world are eating like rice and lentils and shit. I mean, go look at like Nepal or something. Look at what they're eating. It's like dal bhat and rice every day. And I also was just saying that I think that it's not totally fair to just say that it's because of the free market, because there's subsidies at place, right? So that has to do with why the animal products cost what they cost. So I think vegans, especially on the right, might take some issue with just saying that, it's just purely the free market that has dictated the price structure of meat versus plants. And then finally, just in conclusion, I'd say that I think that the economics, we can get into it, but personally, I usually debate people on the assumption that it's affordable and it's healthy. Like what I focus on is the ethics. So we can talk more about this if you want, but I would personally like to steer it back to the initial question with the cow, and then also a few of the we won't go to this right away, but I also want to address some of the traits that you put out in your response, like thought and experience and aspirations. And at one point you said roaming millennials' traits of emotional range and IQ are good. And I think all of those produce contradictions. But there's my answer. And I think we should get back to the stabbing. Yeah. When you did your response to me on your channel, I pointed out that roaming millennial appealed to emotional range and IQ, and you referred to that as a good point.
When I do live streams, it's just like a half hour of me talking, and by the end of it, I'm like, "What the fuck did I just say?" So you might have to remind me.
That's okay. That's okay.
I roaming millennial. I say she didn't have thought. That sounds more like something I would say.
No. You were agreeing with her on the stream. So I don't know. I see Irate Bear in the chat. Hi to that guy. So we can talk more about the economics, but I mean, I think that the real debate is on the ethics. So, and that's where it started.
Economic.
Well, I don't want you to think we're avoiding the question. I would rather focus on the ethics, though.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. So just to get back to the original point. So you talked about ka-chunking a backyard animal. And I asked you if you think that it's consistent to support that on the basis that the animal has, quote, lived a good life, when you wouldn't support ka-chunking a human who's lived a good life. And your response was to say, would you rather have a bunch of farms that do that or factory farms, which I don't mean this in a rude way, is a red herring. It's not actually answering the question. It's asking a separate question. And now I've answered that, so I'd like an answer to mine.
You don't know. Maybe I would support ka-chunking humans.
No, but if I got you to admit that, then you would prove my point, which is that you can't simultaneously believe in universal human rights and oppose veganism while being consistent.
I think you can, because they're not the same argument. Humans and animals are different.
Wait, but can you answer
for the most part
before you say all this? Can you answer my question though?
Okay, repeat the question one more time.
Sorry, I started going off. And if I go off, you bring me back. It's fine. I just want an answer to the question. You say it's fine to ka-chunk the animal because it's lived a good life. Is it okay to ka-chunk a human because they've lived a good life? If they've lived a good life, sorry.
In that very, very basic context of they had a good life, so it's okay to kill them? No. But okay. Like I said, it's what the purpose of the ka-chunk is. Okay. If this human lived a good life and they're about to die of cancer, go ahead and ka-chunk them.
Of course. Now, I agree with what you're saying there. So this is what I'm trying to get on the table right now. And then you can say all that stuff you want to say. when you start saying it's something other than just living the good life, then you're appealing to another trait. So it's not the good life itself, because you reject that as a justification in one context. So can we take the argument that a good life justifies killing off the table?
Well, I think either I might have misspoken or not represented the way I meant it as clearly as I should have.
Sure.
So when I say a good life, I meant that this wasn't an animal kept in a factory farm and mistreated its whole life. This is a cow that's just been like, all right, here's your acre of land, go nuts.
Yep.
But it's going to get killed for the food either way.
Well, the whole question is whether that killing is justified on the basis of the quality of life. So if you're saying that's not what I meant to say, and that's totally fine. I say shit wrong all the time, but are you saying a good life?
I think the killing is justified as opposed to the factory farming. The killing is justified because that cow is going to turn into food. We haven't banned cows as food yet, so that's going to happen.
Okay, but saying that's going to happen isn't really an answer to the ethical question, right? Because you're just saying, like, it's like if you asked me, do you think it's ethical to just punch people? And I were to answer like, well, it's way better than punching them and then raping them. And you're like, well, wait. I'm just wondering if punching them is ethical in the first place, not if it's better than some other even worse option.
Well, I think I answered your question because you said, is it ethical to justify the killing of an animal? Mm-hmm. Because it had a good life. And
I asked for a human. Oh, okay. Well, so wait. Sorry, you are saying no to that now. You agree that that's not a.
I am saying no, but if the animal is being used for a purpose, and if you're going to kill a human and then eat it, and the whole reason that human was even born in the first place, and you're going to kill it and eat it, that would be an equal argument. But the whole reason this animal is alive right now is so it can be eaten.
Yep. Yeah. So,
and what? Okay. Well, I'm going to take that argument and take it a step further. How many animals do you think would be extinct if they weren't raised and bred in captivity for the sole purpose of killing and eating, or killing for sport? How many? Now that's an animal rights argument that we can have, because I know for a fact that all of these preserves in Africa keep dozens and dozens of species alive just for the sole fact that someone can come and hunt them. But there still is species that has not gone extinct because of that. So is it moral to keep them alive for the purpose that they are going to be used for something else? Or should you just let the whole species go extinct? What the fuck use is there for cows outside of food? Well, cows would just die because they're stupid.
First of all, okay, well, I think that the easiest way to answer that would be to say, just build a wildlife sanctuary. I mean, do you really need to also kill them? And I don't know, when the specific question of how many animals have survived as a result of, we domesticate them or use them for some purpose, I don't know. But, I don't think that actually justifies the action, and you could keep them alive by some other means. And more importantly, I think that we've drifted off of what I'm trying to get across right here. We can come back to what you're saying, but just to be clear, you still have an argument of a bunch of reasons why it's okay to kill the animals, but the specific reason that because they've lived a good life, you're saying that is not grounds, just to be clear.
I said, if you're going to kill the animal and not do anything with it, if you're just going to walk by and kill an animal, he was fine, he had a good life. No, that's stupid. That's not morally justified. It's not morally justified to kill anything for no reason. But if there is a reason, like you need to live and eat, or if this is sick or the human is sick, it is morally justified to go, look, it's time to die. Would you rather have it a good death or a bad death?
Yeah, and at that point, you're adding in another factor, which is in that case, you're actually doing them a favor by killing them if they're in huge pain and they want to die. So I basically the way that I try to approach these conversations is the person who supports killing animals always comes in with a lot of justifications. So, just to name a few, there's usually, plants are sentient, it's natural, they're not our species, rights are subjective. So there's a whole ton of these. We have canines, there's a ton of these standard arguments. And what I find is that you need to go one by one by each argument that they say and point out why that argument alone does not do the trick.
Well, I'm not trying to have the standard arguments with you. I've conceded the morality point that there is a moral high ground to eating
a moral
meat,
high ground. Yeah.
but I think there
yeah.
are tons of other factors at play
I'm
too, other than just eating meat for fun to kill animals.
yeah,
There's a
yeah,
lot
of
more than
course.
that going on.
Of course. Yeah. So when we reduce it to one specific justification in a philosophical abstract situation, that's just to point out whether that justification itself works. It's not to say, well, now because you think, killing because they've had a good life is wrong, now you have no argument against veganism. You could have another argument. You could have a whole set of other arguments. I'm just trying to go the justifications one by one. And just to be clear, I know that you have what you're calling conceded the moral point by acknowledging that there's a moral high ground to veganism. But I mean, I'm not just seeking an admission that it's the moral high ground. I'm seeking an admission that it is fundamentally contradictory to support universal human rights and not support veganism.
Well, I don't think it's contradictory because, like I said before, humans and animals are different.
Mm-hmm.
They're not the same thing. We have different experiences. Have you ever hit a squirrel with your car?
I don't drive.
I don't know.
I mean, I know it happens though. Squirrels get hit.
It's like, yeah, squirrels get hit. Is that morally egregious? What happens if you hit a dog? You're going to suffer a little more because it's a dog and it has a closer relationship to humans and it has a better life experience.
Yeah.
But what if you hit a kid? If you hit a kid, you might not get over that if you live to be 1,000 years old.
Yeah.
So each one of these things are different.
They are. Oh, yeah. And I think it's worse to hit the kid. And I think that I said this in my last discussion with Friended. When we have to program automated cars because we just know that the death toll from car accidents will go down so much if we automate them that it becomes a necessity. When we program cars for crash situations, when they have to select who to hit if they have to hit somebody, they should preferentially hit a squirrel over a kid, obviously, because the kid represents more well-being. And I don't see any way that you could say the kid doesn't have higher moral value. So I don't advocate for equal rights or anything like that, or think that animals and humans aren't different, as you're saying. But I do think that they deserve some basic rights. So
yeah, sure, they deserve basic rights. They deserve not to be killed for no reason. That's why we put animal abusers in jail.
And I would add,
walking down the street and have someone just kick the shit out of it. We put that guy in jail.
Okay.
But if we're hunting and we kill a deer and we use the deer totally, we use the meat for food, we use the skin for leather, and we use the bones for whatever the fuck you use bones for. Is that the same thing? Are you saying that's the same thing as just walking down the street and stabbing a dog in the head?
No, of course not. And I'm glad you agree that it's bad to kill animals for no reasons. I would expand that. We should probably also say it's not good to kill animals for bad reasons. And I would put hunting in the category of bad reasons. And again, I would just appeal to logical consistency. And I'd point out, if you said everything you just said in the human context, like, no kid deserves to be just like hit out of nowhere and killed for no reason. What's the point of that? But, if you're going to use every part of their body and you're going out and you hunt them, that it's like, right. So you would reject that justification in one context. So then to apply it in the other would produce a contradiction.
Well, you say that, but it's not a contradiction because they're not the same thing.
Well, no, but
you are, this whole stream, so far, all you've been saying is that animals deserve the same rights as people.
That's no.
They don't.
Wait. Let me ask you Let me ask you clearly, though. I don't hold that position. What do you think my actual position is? Do you think that I believe animals should have the same rights as people?
Basic rights as people. Yeah, you think they should have the right to life and a right to good life.
Yeah, basic rights.
Saying animals deserve the right to vote and the right to free speech. That's silly. You know what I mean.
Okay, well, I just want to be clear.
Rights.
I just want to be clear. A lot of people genuinely think that we're saying something that crazy. So now let's talk about what you just said. I mean, you're saying that the contexts are different. So whatever difference you're naming, you need to spell that out explicitly, and it has to be a difference which, if true of the human, would justify doing the thing to the human. Because the whole problem.
Now you're trying to trap me in the debate about the in-group out-group thing.
No. It's not about in-group, out-group. I use the same argument across the board. All I say, Sinatra, is if you're going to say that something justifies harming animals, whether it's a good life, whether it's that you use every part of the body, you can't simultaneously reject that justification in another context and call yourself consistent.
I can, because animals are not human.
Okay, wait. But Now, right now, I'll just point out, you're saying I can because the contexts are different. So the difference that you've now pointed out just falls back into my argument. You said they're not human. Okay, well, if someone says you're not alien, do you accept that? That's just an appeal to species.
Yes, that if an alien ship came down, and you made this argument in your video too, if an alien ship came down and was like, we got to kill everybody, humans would be like, well, fuck, okay, there's not much we can do about it. Like, your nuclear weapons won't work. Cows' kicks don't really hurt us, so our nukes won't work on them. So we're like, oh fuck, okay, well, I guess we're all dying then.
Well, I think it would hurt
of course,
to get
people
kicked by a cow, to be fair, but we can do.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt the machine.
Yeah. Well, so the point isn't whether we could resist it or not. The point is, would you think that that is ethical? Would you actually accept the ethical justification offered by the aliens if they just said we're a higher or a different species? You're not us.
If they were like, our whole solar system is dying because humanity would die out with
no, that's totally adding another element though, right? Because we're not going to die if we don't eat animals. So you're adding something that makes it seem more morally gray. So let's just stick to the clear case, right?
I'm following you.
Yeah, so just with species. And again, I'm keeping the meta structure in mind. We still haven't totally gotten these other justifications off the table, like using every part of the body. And what was the other one? That you give them a good life. So just with species, this is why I like to do them one by one, because then it becomes a big array of justifications. But yeah, with species, you would not consider it ethical, presumably, for an alien to say, because we're a different species, we're going to kill you. Would you consider that ethical?
No.
But wait. Before your butt,
arguing.
Let me just point out where my argument goes, then give me your butt. Because if you wouldn't consider that ethical, then to appeal to species in another context creates a contradiction, because you're simultaneously appealing to and rejecting the same factor.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. I understand the argument.
Yes.
But I will raise you the fact that it doesn't matter.
Well, that's not.
Ethics are subjective. Yep. We all know that. What's ethical to me might not be ethical to you. And what's ethical to us might be ethical to a different culture. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Ethics are subjective. And for you to say that we hold the same ethics as an alien species is not true.
I didn't say that.
If an alien species came down and said, we're killing everyone and there's nothing you can do, we're like, okay, that sucks.
Okay.
Like, what are you going to do about it?
Okay, a few things.
And for us to go to cows and say, we're going to kill you to eat you, and I'm going to say it again, because it is just the way it is. Until there is some way where you can have karma-free farming of any way, there will always be an argument about ethics, because I'm sure you eat bread of some kind, don't you?
Yeah, I eat bread.
So combines, get the grain, combines indiscriminately chew up everything in that field. So it's not karma-free. Untold numbers of bugs, rats, rodents, mice, deer, fawn, everything in that field gets chewed up by the combine. So any way you slice it, something is dying so you can eat, unless you somehow grow your own wheat. But I don't think you do.
Yeah, no, it's kind of like the appeal.
Jesus. Are you guys following what I'm saying, or am I just shitting all over this? Because I kind of feel like we both have each other on a back foot here. Boop, doop. Yeah. I don't know why I moved that. Don't come into the stream. Yeah, Crohn's is a disease that harms humans. Who is this YouTube intellectual dude? I've never seen him in my chat before.
I'm slowly growing to hate Google Hangouts. How much of that did you hear?
I don't even remember. I think you got out. Actually, I think I was still talking when you left.
Oh, shit. Maybe I didn't notice. Okay, well, you can finish what you were saying if you would like to.
Go ahead. If I remember, I'll bring it back up.
Okay, so before answering you specifically, I just want to talk about the structure of what's happening in this conversation, which is I'm trying to stick to points and then get admissions on that points, but you're being kind of explosive. Again, I don't mean that in a mean way, but you've gone to we use every part of the body. What if we kill them painlessly? We talked a bit. You said it's species. Then you talked about crop harvesters. So I'm having a hard time getting admissions on specific arguments. It seems that when I try to, you kind of move to another argument. So with species, with aliens, the point isn't that us and aliens have the same moral system, which you said that I said. I didn't say that. The point is that
No, I said it would be silly to expect them to have the same ethical system as we do.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know if it would be silly, because this goes way off point, but I think that you could talk about general patterns that are kind of naturally going to happen in the evolution of ethical systems. But still, yeah, like the aliens could have a different morality. But the point that I'm making there is that you wouldn't accept the argument that the aliens make. If they say, we're of a different species, so we're going to kill you on that basis, you'd say, well, what the fuck relevance is species? Why are you just going to kill me? And then with the crop harvesters, that's a bit different. You just have to look at the death context, why it's happening. So I would put that in a completely different category than killing an animal for food. Have I still got you there?
What? Oh yeah, I thought you died again.
No, it's okay. So we can go those one by one, but I don't want the list of arguments to expand so large that we can't actually address any of them. So, I mean, I know people get annoyed with me in these debates, but I really like to just go the specific points and be clear on each specific point. So you've acknowledged that good life is not a justification. That's not per se going to justify killing something.
Correct, but yeah. I'm going to add the asterisks on there and say, as opposed to the method in which most factory farming is done, which is completely just
it's
abhorrent.
Better.
Name another industry that has an ad gag law.
Yeah.
It's completely abhorrent.
Mm-hmm.
But I would much rather have
I agree.
meat that people eat come from that,
of course,
than a farm where, like I said, it's just awful.
Yeah, so that's not something I disagree with. I think that it's still wrong, but so you are acknowledging, as far as I can tell, that the argument that because it lived a good life, that alone is not going to do the trick. Even if you're going to say it's more ethical to have those backyard animals killed than the factory farm, you would agree that the argument, because it's lived a good life, that alone is not enough to justify killing the animal.
No, it's that alone is absolutely not.
Okay.
The awesome. Justifications come with what you do.
Yeah. And to be clear, the reason you'd agree that it's not enough to justify killing the animal is because it would produce a contradiction, because you simultaneously reject that justification in other contexts.
I don't think killing anybody because they have a good life is good.
Of course.
Just solely for the purpose that they had, like,
of
wow,
course.
Your life's too good, we got to kill you.
well, to be fair, it's not, you weren't necessarily saying because they've lived a good life, we have to kill them. You're saying because we've lived a good life, that justifies killing them, not that we have to for that reason. That would be even more crazy. Oh, anyone that gets happy enough, you just have to take them out. So yeah, if we can agree that just living a good life, I mean, if you say that that's not a good reason to kill someone, then obviously simultaneously saying that it would be a good reason to kill someone, that would be a contradiction, surely.
No, solely saying that they had a good life is not justification for killing somebody.
Yes, and to be clear, it's not a justification because it would produce a contradiction with your other moral beliefs.
Depending on the belief.
Well, yeah, you reject, I mean, I'm just saying you reject killing on the basis of good life in other contexts. So it wouldn't be, if you reject that argument per se in one context, you can't appeal to it per se in another context.
It depends on the context. If I say
per se as in
not justified. If I say killing is not justified because they had a good life and you're just killing them just to kill them, that's not justified in any way, shape, or form. But if you're living your whole life and it's going to let up and your whole life is meant to be on somebody's hamburger, it is better for you to die having
Yeah,
a happy life
I
than
agree.
living an awful life.
Of course. Yeah, you're not getting any feedback on that. It's just I just want us to understand, be on the same page about why we're rejecting that argument. So when you say that you would not accept, when I say per se, I'm talking that argument in of itself without any other factors, just in a philosophical abstract. You reject the argument that a good life justifies murder. So you can't simultaneously use that argument per se. You might say, oh, it's all these other factors and there's a bunch of other stuff that justifies it in practice.
No, I will give you that point.
Okay.
I will give you that point that it doesn't justify, no matter the context, just solely killing because they had a good life.
Yes, absolutely. And if you were to say in one context that solely just because they lived a good life does do it, that would be a contradiction.
No, it doesn't do it. But if we're talking the context of killing,
but wait, but we're just talking totally in the philosophical abstract. I just want to get this point down and then we can move to the next one. So I'm very happy that you acknowledge that's not alone a good justification. That's fine. But I'm just trying.
Alone, it's not a good justification.
Yes, and I'm totally hearing you on that. And I also agree that it's better to have those animals dying in a way that's not as bad as a factory farm, although I would still hold that's immoral. So I'm just trying to get us to agree on why it doesn't make sense, because I'm going to use the same logic to point out why all the others don't make sense. So when you reject the argument that it's okay to kill based on the fact that the thing has lived a good life, when you say that argument per se, meaning in of itself, is not a justification for killing, to simultaneously say that argument in of itself per se is a good justification for killing, that would be a contradiction.
Yes, because it's
sweet.
Killing. I will say it one more time as clearly as I possibly can.
Yeah.
To remove any doubt from anybody's mind. Killing somebody or an animal, killing anything because it lived a decent life, in and of itself is not alone enough of a justification to kill it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yep. Yeah. No, that's good. Okay. So
I gotta time this guy out in my chat. He's fucking irritating.
Yeah, man. I'm not seeing much cancer in mine actually right now. It seems pretty.
It's just some dude asking over and over if he can join the hangout.
Oh God. What's the name?
Mind guy.
Don't know him.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you good to receive more words or do you need a second there?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. So, actually, before we move on, is there anything that you have that you need to say here?
I think as far as that point goes, I'm pretty good. I do have a question I want to get to. We could probably do it towards the end because it's something interesting I read before the stream.
Kind of off topic?
Semi off topic, but it still has to do with meat. So,
just hit it if you want to. It's fine. It'll keep the mood.
Would you eat cultured meats, like Memphis meats?
I personally would not, but not for ethical reasons. I don't see any ethical problem with that at all.
Just the ick factor of it?
Two things. The health and the ick factor, yeah. So aesthetic and health reasons.
So for anyone on his stream or my stream who doesn't know what this is, Memphis Meats creates cultured meats. It's meats that are never been alive. There's no anything to it. It's just the cells that you want to eat. There's no antibiotics, xenoviruses, anything, steroids, nothing in the meat. It's meat that was grown in a lab in a vat by some dude in a white doctor's lab coat. That's all that is. Mm-hmm. But you wouldn't eat that. You would just the ick factor too much.
Yeah, but I'm not making a moral argument against it. There is a small moral argument that some people make, which is that collecting the tissue sample initially required either abusing or killing an animal. And obviously, I think that's problematic, but once it's done and you have the sample and now you can make the meat, I mean, it's done. It's in the past. Now we can make it. So you can't.
The animal didn't die for it.
Well, I think there are issues with doing that to an animal, but anyway, but generally speaking, yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with that shit. It's the, cultured meat, whatever. It's all good. Is there anything
just
else?
Out of curiosity, what do you think what's the issue with doing that to an animal?
Gathering. I actually am not familiar enough with what they do there, so I couldn't answer that. I've just heard some vegans make an ethical argument against the way that the sample is collected. I don't have the info to really answer that.
Okay, all right. So you're not making that argument. You're aware of it.
No, and I would also add, it's like when people try to condemn a company forever because they've done animal testing in their past, even when the testing is not happening anymore. It's like, yeah, there's been unethical shit in the past. You know, some research was done by the Nazis that people still use in this day and age. Once it's done, and there's no harm in using the thing that came from it. I don't agree with that kind of thinking. But if it required some kind of consistent like sampling of animals' flesh and therefore killing them, then I would see an ethical problem for sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
I think as far as the no reason killing, I don't really have anything else to add to that.
Well, we weren't talking. Well, yeah, okay, yeah. So let's go on to the next one, because the first, I wouldn't have thought of it as no reason killing. I would have thought of that first one as killing on the basis,
or good life
yes,
killing.
Exactly, yeah, totally. So then the next one that you said was it was we use every part of the body, and you know, if I've missed one or two in here, forgive me. I don't have the best fucking mental RAM going on. I can forget things. But I know that at one point you said we use every part of the body. So I would just say the same logic. In the human context, you would not accept the justification that we use every part of the body. So to simultaneously use that justification in another context would again produce a contradiction.
Well, to say that, you're still equating people to animals.
No.
And people aren't animals.
No, I'm not. And when you do that, when you say to do that, you're equating humans to animal, all you're doing is naming another trait, and that trait is species.
But I did say I was okay with the idea of killing species.
Okay,
I know you think I'm kidding when I say it, but if an alien came down right now and it's like, we're killing you, I'd be like, okay, there's nothing we can do about it. It's the same way with cows. There's nothing they can do about it. They just have to sit there and take it.
Okay, let's start.
I might not like it. Like I said to you, I don't eat red meat. I participate in factory farming as little as I can.
Yep.
But it is happening. And I don't see the point in getting into the morality debate about something that's not going to change anytime soon. Oh, fuck, he left again. Or he died. He's not leaving. Okay, guys, seriously, can you just give me a yes or no in the chat? Am I making sense? Or
sorry, Sinatra. I heard you up to, I don't see a point in getting into the morality debate about something that's not going to change.
Yeah, that's it. I can understand wanting to have the debate, but people are going to eat meat. Unless the Memphis Meats type stuff becomes not $250,000 for a steak, meat is just going to be consumed. People are unable to afford vegan food. And remind me, actually, you know, good. Just I'm going to stop there. Go ahead.
Okay, well, in reverse,
forget the whole afford vegan thing, because we'll get back to that.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm not a rich man. I can afford to eat vegan. I mean, grains, rice, you're talking some of the cheapest things out there. It's you're right when you're talking about the processed foods, like the vegan meats and stuff that you would get at, as you said, a vegan specialty shop. Absolutely. That'll bankrupt you. But the cheapest foods, I mean, you're talking like lentils, rice, shit like this. But let's not stick on that. I want to kind of get back to what you said with the species stuff. So, okay, you talked about the species, but then you went into kind of a pragmatic argument. So I'll go off, name the trait for a second, and just talk about the kind of distinction between a principled and pragmatic argument and what kind of argument I am making here. So when you say, you know, you'd have to get, you know, products like Memphis Meats to get people on board, and, you know, people just aren't going to change and stuff. What you're saying, it's not a moral argument. It's a pragmatic argument. It's a practical argument. You're saying implementing this in practice will be difficult for a variety of reasons. So
like I said, I'm not against veganism. And I don't hold anything against it. What I'm arguing is well, just basically whatever you want to argue about, I'm arguing. But what I'm arguing against,
just against anything you say.
Yeah, just fuck it. Because I don't disagree with you on a lot of this stuff. I don't.
No, I don't think sorry, go ahead.
Because I'm a huge workout person. I love going to the gym. I take pretty good care of my body. Absolutely. After my injury. There's not too much I can do now, but I do what I can.
You're begging me to ask there, what's the injury?
I tore my meniscus in my knee.
Oh shit! Yeah, that's definitely gonna.
Yeah, I was on a cane for like 3 months, and I couldn't lift. I couldn't do anything. It sucked.
Are you healed now?
Not totally, but I'm better than what I was. I'm more than likely gonna have to have surgery at some point. I'm just pushing it off to like after Christmas.
Fuck yeah. All right. Well, I wish you good health, but sorry, continue.
Thank you.
Yep.
I was super into working out. I tried being a bodybuilder for a little bit, but I didn't like the way I felt. But I was a power lifter, and even that, my need for protein consumption was 4 or 5 times what the normal person eats, and I still wouldn't eat red meat. So I think there are benefits to a vegan or vegetarian diet, depending on how you want to cut it, because I know they're not the same thing.
Yeah, they're not.
Like,
you know the distinction, just to be clear.
Yeah, it's dairy, basically.
Yeah, dairy, eggs. Sometimes vegetarians will even say fish is a vegetable.
Yeah,
like a lot of people call themselves vegetarian and eat fish. Yeah, vegan, it's no animal products.
Nothing.
Yes.
But you guys are still somehow eating.
Yeah, I mean, we manage you got some pretty high profile vegan people in athletics too.
Like who?
Well, I mean, there's that guy who's Mr. Universe. You got Patrick Baboumian. He's a pretty classic example.
Ronnie Coleman's a vegan?
No, Mr. Universe. I think his name is Barney Duplessis. Do I have that right? Someone will correct me in the chat. And then Patrick Baboumian's another example. He has the world record in some powerlifting type thing. I think it might be, what's the one called where you hold the bar over your shoulders and it has 2 things hanging off each end of the bar and you walk with it, kind of waddle around?
Oh, the strongman competition.
He's a strongman. Yeah, but he's vegan, huge strongman. I'm sure I could look up and name off more. I mean, there's people like Rich Roll. There's people who are pretty, formidable in athletics who are eating vegan. Nate Diaz is an example of someone who's pretty much completely a vegan. But health is a bit out of my wheelhouse. I mean, if you know what I do, I'm primarily talking about ethics over here.
That's something I probably have to talk to what's his face about.
Yeah, I can put you in touch. You might want to do a combo. I don't know.
Lost him again. What's his name? Vegan Gains. Yeah, I'm gonna ask him if Vegan Gains is on the rights, because I think he's got to be. He's got them big muscles. Vegan Gains a big boy. No, vegetarians do eat fish because they fall under the same thought that fish don't have any nerves. They don't have the brain to feel pain, so they just eat fucking fish. Like, they eat oysters and mussels and shit. I'm a little chunk. I do okay. Sentience does not mean it. Plants are technically sentient because they do react to the environment around them, but there is no intelligence there. Yeah, I'm having a really hard time concentrating him too. It's not that he's boring. It's just that I get like easily distracted. Saw Vegan Gains deep throat a cucumber. That's interesting. Oh,
got to get better at catching that. Sorry, I was just saying we should get back to where we're at. So there's the principled and the practical argument. So I'm just saying the practical argument, I'd probably agree with a lot of the things you bring up, that, if you want to talk about getting food into food deserts, if you want to talk about persuading the public, there's a bunch of pragmatic, practical reasons why veganism would be hard to implement. If you want to talk about other countries. So I'm just distinguishing my argument from pragmatic arguments. My argument is a principled argument. I'm arguing that you can't simultaneously support universal human rights and deny veganism while remaining logically consistent. So again, you don't have to buy that right off the bat, but I'm just making it clear that I'm not arguing with you on the practical stuff about how it might be difficult to implement. I'm arguing about what you should personally do.
Well, I don't think, I think if we're going to argue about the basic rights, we're going to end up in a ditch, because we're just going to end up talking in circles. And I don't think anybody wants to do that.
I don't know that that's true. I mean, we actually got concession, and I shouldn't say we, I got concession from you on that first point. So we should just go through more, because I bet that I can point out that you're either contradictory or have to go vegan. So let's keep going. So you said species was the next one. And now it's gotten far enough back in the conversation that I don't remember exactly what you said, but I noticed the general thing you do with species is you say, well, if the aliens came down, I mean, we couldn't really fight them off. Well, I'm not talking about whether it would be possible to fight them off in practice. I'm talking about whether you would actually agree with aliens wiping us out on the basis that we're a different species. And just before you answer, don't go to some other reason like, oh, we're their only food source or something to make it morally gray. just the argument of species. You wouldn't accept that, would you?
In absolutely no context, I couldn't give you an answer, because what if it was? What if we were the only species, or they would all die out? What if? And second off, you're saying that we're like performing some kind of final solution on cows when we're not. The cows are in no way at all in danger of going extinct. But you're falsely equating the two things. Aliens coming down saying they're going to kill all humans, and cows dying while other cows are living for food is not the same thing.
Well, we're just looking at the element
So
of...
when you say you want me to concede the point of I would find this morally abhorrent if aliens did it, but I'm somehow okay with it when cows do it, it's a false equivalency. It's not the same thing.
Well, I don't think anyone's saying, like, I'm not making the point that in practice, the only justification we're using for killing animals is that they're of a different species. I'm just addressing that argument on its own right now in a philosophical abstract, right? So if the aliens say we're going to kill you based on species, it doesn't matter if it's all of you. It doesn't matter if it's some of you. We're just saying killing on the basis of species. That is the expressed reason for them doing it. Would you accept that?
See, you're trying to pay me into a corner here, and I'm not going to concede it because you're trying to say things. You're trying to make it sound like I say things I didn't say.
No,
to make it more equal, that would be like saying aliens come down, they take like 8 people with them, and then they bring them to their home planet, and they go, all right, you guys need to have kids. These kids are going to have absolutely no experience in their life other than food. That's more of an equal justification.
But what you're kind of missing what I'm trying to get at here. I'm not trying to map the whole animal agriculture industry onto the alien analogy. All I'm talking about is the component of killing based on species. Because again, the general structure of this conversation is going to be, you'll put out a lot of justifications, whether it's natural. Well, you didn't say that. Whether it's, species, whether it's use every part of it, whether it's it had a good life. And we're going to need to go those arguments one by one on their own. So when you start saying stuff like, well, that's not the full context, and adding more context, that's actually, again, like, not being rude, but it's a red herring. It's not actually answering the question. It's bringing more into the question and not answering it.
Okay, real quick, before we get into that, someone's knocking at my door. Can you
Absolutely.
Can you not die for like 2 minutes?
Man, yeah, I'll keep them entertained. When you guys catch up to me, I guess it's going to be a bit delayed from the talk to the chat. You can ask some questions while Sinatra figures out what he's doing. Any input, any things that you guys want to get across, just feel free to share. I am currently looking at the chat. Hope they are all having a fantastic Monday. It's funny that you guys can make time for this right in the middle of your day. All right, what do we have here? I'm just going to read some off. Answer the question and stop dodging. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he fully gets what I'm asking, so I don't know if he's dodging on purpose. Ask yourself, please just ask Sinatra why he isn't vegan. What is the reason that keeps eating meat? Then debunk that reason. No, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm going to look at the arguments that he's put on the table for why he opposes veganism and go them one by one, as I always do. So no, thank you. Ask yourself, why do you never consider that maybe you are the wrong one when everyone you stream with gets annoyed with you? Well, to be fair, not everyone. Opponents do often, and it's because I smash them. I mean, let's be honest. Although right here, this is more of a, just happy, productive discussion so far. We got Logan Blake saying, I like plants. LT Fish saying, this guy isn't as dumb as the rest of them. Ask yourself, are you going to do any more debates with Vegan Gains? The only one that might happen a while ago, I think he and Naked Ape were talking about a debate, but we don't have any scheduled right now. Ask him if you would accept... Oh, have I dropped? Thank God I haven't dropped. Okay, so ask him if he would accept killing a near-human species that we discovered on an island. Well, again, I'm going to try to just keep it actually on point. We already have a bunch of arguments on the table, so let's just go through those. What else do we have here? Oh, this chat's going too fast. Whoa, holy shit. Okay, going back to this one. So your echo chamber doesn't get annoyed with you. Okay, already annoyed me with that comment and blocked. Bye-bye. Okay, what's it to you? Ask yourself, see if you can use a different analogy than the alien invasion to illustrate the same logical consistency. Do you have one? Well, the analogy I use is perfectly fine. People have this kind of habit where they like to say, if they don't get it, use something else. It's like, no, make the point as clearly as you can. The audience gets what's happening just fine. I'm not here to convince Sinatra. I'm here to show he doesn't make any sense. Again, not trying to be rude, but that's kind of the point of talking about veganism. Okay, meta-ethics are not red herrings. Meta-ethics are red herrings if you already accept human rights, because then we're just talking about what follows logically from the human rights you already accept, and then asking someone to bootstrap ethics for animals. That, going to meta-ethics, that's a total red herring, because you've already bootstrapped ethics. The knowing guy asks, ask yourself, you think he answer any of your questions? Yeah, I think that it's taking a little bit of pressure to get him to recognize exactly what my question is and what I want an answer to. But I mean, he's answering some of them. He keeps adding in other information and kind of talking about other things. Okay, I always look forward to your debates. Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Ask yourself, animal rights don't follow from human rights. That's not an argument. That's just a statement. Okay, what's your favorite kombucha? I don't really drink much kombucha. I kind of like all of it. Do I listen to Born of Osiris? I've listened to a little bit. I like stuff that's a bit more kind of melodic, kind of techy. The meta-ethical belief in suffering as prime is unique from what is considered in defining human rights. Don't even know what you're trying to say there. No worries, man.
My bus driver, not my bus driver, but a bus driver came around and was like, this is the right house, right?
Why is a bus driver at your house?
My kids take the bus to school.
Oh, okay. I got you. Family man. Okay. So, all right. Well, yeah. Okay. Let's continue on with this discussion. So, species. If you good to go?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, sweet. So, species. I'm just trying to get a concession that you think appealing to species per se is not a good argument. So
no, I think it is a good argument.
Okay, so if aliens come down and they say, we're going to kill you because you're not our species, you would consider that a good moral argument?
Well, to make that equivalent, it would have to be that we're saying we're killing cows just because they're cows, and we're not.
Okay, so I just need to be a bit more clear, I guess. I'm not trying to map the entire situation of animal agriculture onto the alien analogy. We're just going through...
So then that's not a good analogy.
Well, no. What we're doing is we're going through the justifications one by one. So there's a few on the table. We've talked about using the whole body. We've talked about giving it a good life. There's species. They're different from us. So right now we're just addressing species. We're not trying to map the whole situation. We're just trying to figure out if we think that appealing to species per se is a justification for killing. And I would say that you probably wouldn't. I mean, I don't think you would accept that in the human context.
Well, again, you're trying to take this very gray, very contextual argument and paint it down to this very little point and then cross it off and throw it off the table, when it's just simply not the case in an argument like this. Well, in an argument like this, there are middle grounds. There are other factors at play. Then we're killing them just because they're cows, or aliens are killing us just because we're human. Yeah, there's a lot more to it than just the basic...
Of course. But surely you acknowledge that we have to actually look at the component parts of the argument.
Yes, we do. And saying that you're just going to kill a species because they're a species is literally like what Hitler did.
I know. Okay, so sorry, but
if you're killing a species because they serve a purpose, the killing of that species serves a purpose other than killing for fun, which we've already gone over. And we've discussed the fact that it isn't a good thing. Mm-hmm. But killing it just for the sake of killing it equals bad.
Okay.
Killing it because you get something from it, and the animal has not a human. The animal is not a human. I think you can concede that point to me. Animals are not humans.
Yes, I will concede that point to you. I will say that humans are animals.
Okay, we definitely. But I think that it's a different playground. We're playing in two different playgrounds here, and we're trying to meet somewhere in the monkey bars. But you keep trying to pull me back to this whole thing where it's like we're killing them just because that's what they are, and
No,
that's
no,
not the
no.
case. We're killing them because we need them.
I understand fully what you're saying. You're saying, look, you're trying to just reduce it to an argument from species. It's not just an argument from species. That's a component part. So for you to say that's why we're doing it, that's false analogy. I fully understand. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just pointing out the individual component aspects of the argument that you're making. None of them individually will justify what you're doing. So collectively, they can't, unless you want to say the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And that falls apart for separate reasons than we can, also get into. So right now, I'm not trying to make a full analogy between aliens and factory farming. I'm just pointing out that the argument species per se is something that you would obviously reject in the human context if you're honest with yourself. And you've just said, like, yeah, killing just based on species. It's basically what Hitler did, killing just based on race. So just to be clear, you would acknowledge that species per se, meaning in of itself, is not a valid justification for killing.
I don't know anybody who would.
Yeah,
but
of course,
me saying that is
a lot of
you painting a straw man on me.
No, I'm not saying that that's, just to be clear, Sinatra, I'm not saying that's the only argument you're using. It's just a component part. So we're just going them one by one. I don't think, therefore, your whole position falls apart.
We can, two things can be true at once. We can say that killing a species just because they're a species is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But we can also say that killing an individual of that species for a separate reason can be correct. It can be justified.
Yeah, of course.
So if I went outside right now and just started killing squirrels because they're squirrels, that's wrong. But if I went outside right now and started killing squirrels because I need them to live, that's not wrong, because I can do that. And that is kind of me making the argument that I can do something, therefore I could do something.
Okay, now I don't agree with the specific example that you used there, but I understand and agree with your overall point, which is that, yeah, you might not be for killing just, on the grounds of species alone, but there might be valid arguments to kill. So just instead of the squirrels, let's just pick something that we can both clearly agree on. It's fine to kill an animal in self-defense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would agree.
I have coyotes around me. I've never killed a coyote, but if a coyote came after me, I'd kill the coyote.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't eat the coyote because I know it's eating some nasty shit.
Mm-hmm.
But if I were in the wild somewhere where people weren't and a coyote came at me, maybe I'm having coyote for dinner.
Yeah, no, I have no problem with that. If something's trying to kill you and you're not confident that you can deal with it without killing the thing, then fucking kill it 100%. That applies to humans too. So I see no contradiction there. But when we're talking about species, I'm just trying to get a concession, and I think I have now. I just want to be sure I have. You agree that species alone, bad argument.
Species alone is not justification for killing. Awesome. It's not a bad argument, though.
Well,
because there are gray areas in the species that we can talk about.
Okay, one thing though, when you're talking about those gray areas, though, you're not actually making an argument just based on species. Sure, the thing happens to be of another species, but you're making the argument based on something like I need it to survive, or I need to defend myself, or something like this. So it's not really an appeal to species.
Then why are we disavowing the species argument?
Well, because the species argument is a component part of the broader argument you're making that has a variety of parts. Like you said, you started off with, if it has a good life. You've said if we use every part. You said they're of a different species. You've said we're killing for a reason. So there's all these separate components, and one of those components is species. So I'm just trying to get you to acknowledge that species itself is a bad justification. And when you go to situations where it happens to be justified to kill something of another species, or even kill a human, it's not actually species you're appealing to. You're appealing to some other factor. It just happens to be a creature of another species. So that would just prove the point that it's not species per se.
Okay, I think I'm following you here, but I still think you're trying to bring me into this pseudo straw man thing where you're making an argument against something I didn't say.
I don't. What do you think that I think you're saying?
I never said killing a species just because I never said killing cows just because they're cows is good.
Yeah, no,
I said
I got you.
the killing of cows is more justified because they're cows. I didn't say going and just shooting a cow in the face is a good thing.
Yeah, no,
but
I do. You don't even need to continue because I'm clear on what you're saying. Yeah, I understand that you're not just saying species alone is an argument. I totally get you on that. And I didn't sound like you said that at any point. It sounds like a component part of what you're saying.
Okay, so then can I get the concession from you that you understand that you are kind of building a straw man here? Because
no, it's not a straw man.
You keep asking me to concede this point that I never said.
Well, no. It's not that I'm not building a straw man. I'm not accusing you of holding the position that killing purely based on species is ethical. But
then why are you trying to get me to concede that?
Well, because it's a component part of what you're saying. So when we start talking about, is it ethical to kill if you're using every part of the body? And you say, well, you're talking about two different contexts. One is animals and one is humans. What you're doing there, you might not directly notice it, but logically speaking, you're appealing to species. You're saying that the trait that distinguishes those two situations of killing and using every body part is species. So I know that you're not explicitly actually in your mind thinking, oh yeah, species just justifies killing whatever, but you're using it intentionally or not as a component part of your argument. So I'm just pointing out, you probably don't agree with that, so it shouldn't be in there. You know what I mean?
But see, this is one of those things where we're just going to be talking in circles until we stop. Like you were with Friended about the in-group, out-group thing.
Well, you saw the comments and the votes. I think people could tell that he wasn't answering. I don't think that's what you're doing necessarily. I think we just need to talk more. But we can very likely hash some of these things out. I'm already optimistic because we hashed out the first point, which was killing because it's had a good life. And I never at any point said, Sinatra's argument is just purely good life. I just took a philosophical abstract and said, would you agree with that argument in the abstract? And you're saying no. And that's what I'm doing now with species. I'm not actually saying that you hold the argument that species is just valid justification to kill fucking whatever you want. Obviously, that would justify killing all humans if by some other species. You probably don't want that.
Okay, so if that's not the argument that you think I'm making, there's no reason for me to concede that point.
Well,
we can move on to the next thing. You keep saying it's part and parcel of what I said.
Well, yeah, when you
but it's not. It's part of the context. Like I said, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it a third time.
Yes, part of the context, but I'm pointing out that it's a contextual factor that on its own doesn't justify.
Well, killing something just to kill it doesn't justify anything.
Well, wait, that's a different
We've
point.
gone over this already. We've gone over this already.
No, we have gone over killing just to kill, but we're not talking about just to kill. We're talking on the basis of species. So I'm going to kill this because it's not of my species.
Yeah, and I never said that was okay. So there's no reason for me to concede that point.
Well, okay. Well, if you're saying...
I pointed out that cows and humans are different.
Yeah, and you were saying that in the context of why it's justified to kill one and not the other, which is, implicitly you're appealing to species. So again, I'm not accusing you of overtly in your mind holding beliefs that atrocious. It's whether you notice it or not, when you try to separate two contexts by saying two death contexts, saying one's ethical and one's not, and the difference is that one's a human and one's an animal, that is the argument that you're making, whether it's really what you're consciously actually thinking or not.
I don't understand how you're going to sit here and tell me what I mean better than what I mean. Because you're trying to say I'm subconsciously making this argument.
No. I'm not saying you're. Whoa, no. I'm not saying you're subconsciously thinking that. I'm saying that it's what is logically inherent in what you're saying. Like when we have two situations, and I'm trying to get a concession from you on a point, like if I ask you, you would reject killing based on using all the body parts in the human context, but you'd accept killing based on using all the body parts in the animal context. And you say, well, no, they're two different contexts. It's two different species.
Yes, because that's the way it is.
Yeah. So what you're doing there, I'm not saying it's subconscious. I don't know what it is, but logically speaking, what you're doing there is you're differentiating the context by appealing to species. And I'm just pointing out that the appeal to species is not a valid argument. And it sounds like You agree. And if the only point of disagreement is whether you're making that argument or not, then we can just drop it, say you're not making it, but you agree, obviously, that species, it's not a justification for killing. You've said it's like Hitler.
Yeah, because it is.
Okay.
Hitler killed Jews just because they were Jews. I'm not killing cows just because they're cows.
Yeah,
you know, I'm not.
And you'd reject someone who does. You'd say they're wrong to do that, and it conflicts.
I'd say you're wrong for killing anybody just because they're different than you.
I would too. Yeah. Okay. So that's good. So,
but if you're gonna kill somebody, and there is a purpose for killing this, I keep saying person because you keep bringing me into this thing where you make me think that animals are humans and they're not. But if I killed something, just because if I went out and started killing. Pick something. If I went out and started killing adorable kitty cats and I just saw an adorable kitty cat and I was like, ew, and stepped on it, that's wrong. But
yeah, I think
if this adorable kitty cat was something that humans eat and I killed that adorable kitty cat, it's more justified than just killing the adorable kitty cat.
Yeah, I mean, it's more justified. I wouldn't say it's justified. It doesn't cross the threshold into being ethical, in my view, but it's definitely better than killing for no reason.
Okay, so then we can move on then, because we are in agreement.
Oh, yeah, I'm ready to move on. I was just letting you finish your point there.
Fine, let's go.
Yeah, so, and I mean, you say we make no progress, but I don't even see that, like, I mean, I don't really know how that's true. Like, we've already got 2 arguments that we are agreeing are not valid arguments. So, obviously being the good life and species.
I didn't say we were making no progress. I said we're going to end up talking ourselves in circles if we don't move on.
Oh, well, we just didn't. We just came to a resolution.
It's going to be one of those. It's going to be one of those arguments that are just straight in a ditch because we just aren't seeing eye to eye on it.
I don't think so.
Anyway, let's go.
Well, just to be clear, we've agreed on that, and we've also agreed on some other points. I agreed with you on some of the pragmatic arguments about how veganism would be difficult to implement. As far as I can tell, you've agreed that good life and species aren't good arguments. So there's just, even just that little bit of concession going both ways, that is vastly more than you get in most of these debates. So I'm already happy. Okay. So, I mean, there's a few here. So the other one that you mentioned was using all the body parts. I think there was other ones that you might have mentioned in this conversation. I've forgotten them now, but I have all the body parts. And then also there's some.
I should have wrote this down too.
Oh, I didn't write them down, but I have the ones from your response to me written down, which again, I'm aware it's not that serious a response, but the ones you named there were thought, experience, and aspirations. And you agreed with roaming millennial on emotional range and IQ. So we can go through those too, but I think maybe we should just hit the, we use all the body parts. So again, this is like pretty straightforward. You wouldn't accept killing a human because you use all the body parts. So obviously the argument I'm using all the body parts per se is not a justification for killing something.
But you're bringing it back to the species argument.
I'm Humans not. You might be about to do that. You're doing that.
Like I've said a few times before, I don't eat red meat.
Mm-hmm.
But if I went out and I killed a deer, I would feel that the death of the deer was less of a loss if I made a coat out of the skin, if I made tools out of the bones, and I fed my dogs with the parts I couldn't cook.
Okay, let me see.
That would be more of a justification than me killing a deer and taking its head and leaving.
Yeah, so, and if I went and killed a human and I used all the parts, I, fed my children.
Humans are not animals.
I didn't say they are. I'm just pointing out. I would agree, just look at it in the human context. I would agree that going and just killing the animal or killing the human and just chopping off their head, and that's just it, that is less ethical than killing the human and putting their body to good use. That wouldn't actually demonstrate that either are ethical. So when you say, killing an animal and using the parts is more ethical than just killing it, or that family farming is more ethical than factory farming, those are true statements, but it doesn't mean that any of those actions cross the threshold into actually being ethical. And to be clear, the reason they don't cross that threshold is because they produce contradictions with how you would want to be treated.
Well, that again, we can have these same words leave our mouth all day long. I don't have anything to do for like another 45 minutes.
Yeah, you tell me when you want to call it.
Animals are not humans.
Of course.
So saying that killing a human would be justified if I use all the parts is like saying killing an animal would be justified if I use all the parts is not the same thing.
I'm not saying it's the same.
The way you bring it up is you make it sound like it's a Janist argument.
I'm not
everything. Every life form is special. Every life form can't hurt a thing when it's not true.
Well, to be clear, I'm not making necessarily a direct comparison between those actions and equate.
I think he died again. Hey guys, if you're watching the stream on mine or Ask Yourself, so make sure you like the stream, guys. We really appreciate just a simple like. It means a lot. For some reason, I think it hits something in the algorithm where the more likes a stream has, the more people come and check it out. Ask Yourself is making some pretty good arguments here for the most part. But if you guys like what he's saying, go check out his channel.
Sorry about that.
Make sure you guys like. All right, good.
Yeah, just to be clear, I was not necessarily like directly equating killing an animal and killing a human. Anyone who's watched my channel for a while would know that I agree that humans have higher moral value, that killing a human is worse than killing an animal. So I would acknowledge all the meaningful differences between killing a human and killing an animal. All I'm pointing out is that logic of, this bad action, well, here's an action that's still bad, but not as bad. That doesn't mean that either are ethical. That's all I'm saying.
Ethics are subjective.
Yes,
like I said before.
Well, let's
in the Western world, it is considered unethical to rape a woman, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But if you go just a few thousand miles to the east, perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
So ethics are subjective.
Yes, they are.
So I think having a subjective argument about ethics, where even if I was like the dude who we might have had debate or mod it he's a vegan, but he agrees that morals are subjective. And he also said he would eat the synthetic meat too.
And you know that I agree they're subjective. And I'd also say we don't seem to need a mod. I think we're doing fine.
Yeah, no, I think we're not getting too far off the.
Man, it's only people who are very dishonest who I end up getting into fucking like yelling matches with. Anyone who can actually have a conversation, it's fine.
Yeah, I'm not here to be dishonest or lie to you, but I'm gonna stand my ground when I feel like you're trying to strawman me. I don't think that's unfair.
Well, I think I mean I've made this point a few times. Maybe you don't agree, but I think that a lot of the audience is going to understand what I'm saying. When I talk about one of the things that is part of Sinatra's argument in a philosophical abstract on its own, whether it's species, whether it's using all the body parts, I'm not saying that Sinatra actually holds the position that, oh, you can just murder things based on species, or, oh, you can just murder it if you're going to use their body parts. I'm saying that if those are component aspects of your element or of your argument, we have to look at each of those elements on their own and go them one by one to point out why they don't make sense. I'm not accusing you of using those direct arguments per se on their own. I understand your argument is a combination. And I also want to hit subjective, though.
Are you anti-military?
No, of course not.
Well, you're Canada, so you must be.
No, I believe in a strong military.
So you think that if we're at war with somebody, let's say we go to war with China, and you think going over there and killing Chinese people because they're Chinese is okay?
Well, it's not because they're Chinese, right? It's because of some broader context of why we have to go to war with the Chinese. It's not literally just they're Chinese.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
but
what
if
saying
someone was making that argument, that would be wrong.
And just because they're race.
Yes, absolutely. And if one of those factors, yep, of course. And if one of those factors actually does not produce a contradiction and is logically consistent, then there's a valid reason for killing them. But if every other argument you examine, every other part of this justification for killing the Chinese, like is something like we're using their body parts efficiently, then you'd say that, okay, it's not valid.
Well, I mean, we did that with the Japanese.
And wait. Well, I don't know the history well enough there, but just to be clear, so when you're saying, is it valid to kill the Chinese in some context? It's like, yeah, but you're not actually justifying it on the basis of their Chinese. That's not actually the argument. The targets happen to be Chinese. But
that's the whole reason we're at war. It's because we're fighting them, and they're Chinese. So it just happens to be that they're Chinese.
Okay, but do you go to war with them because they're Chinese?
Maybe.
Okay,
but that's not the important part. Agree with. That's not the important part.
No, well, obviously, if that's
good.
No, I'm just saying if that were the reason, then I sure as fuck would not agree with it.
But you are understanding that we have to kill them, and they happen to be Chinese.
Yeah, no, I understand exactly what you're trying to do. You're trying to say, look, you accept killing the Chinese in some circumstances, and you're not just saying it's because they're Chinese, and I'm not saying it's just because they're animals. So it would be a straw man for me to accuse you of saying, oh, it's just because they're Chinese, just like it's a straw man of you to accuse. I understand exactly what you're saying there. So what I'm pointing out,
good.
Of course, trust me, I got you. So what I'm pointing out is that it's not literally the fact that they're Chinese. That would be a bad argument. And just in the same way as just the fact that it's a cow would be a bad argument, it would be some other contextual factor. And if there's no other contextual factor that actually is logically consistent, if every other contextual factor is as bad as, we're going to use all their body parts, or we gave the Chinese a good life, well, then killing the Chinese wouldn't be justified. So you'd still look at all of the different factors on their own, each one by one. And the factor they're Chinese, that certainly doesn't pass the scrutiny test. And and sorry to filibuster a little. You can go for a long time after. I just want to hit a point that you made, which was that morals are subjective. So anyone who follows my channel would know I agree that morals are subjective. But it's also possible for subjective beliefs to contradict each other. And that's the whole point of my argument. My argument does not rely on any kind of moral realism. I'm just pointing out that you oppose killing humans, at least generally speaking. I know there's exceptions. So you can't use an argument for killing animals that you would reject for killing humans without contradicting yourself. That doesn't assume any level of objective morality. It just looks for contradictions within your subjective beliefs.
Well, then you would have to objectively realize that animals are not human. We are different things. So for those two things to be equal, for you to be able to say it's justified here but not here, it's in some part of your head, you would have to hold the belief that animals are just like humans. They deserve everything humans do.
No, they only deserve whatever we want for ourselves that we can't find a logically consistent justification for denying to them. So, for example, if we want a right to life, we can't say animals don't get a right to life unless we can think of some reason that we shouldn't give them a right to life that we would accept if it were true of us. So if you say, oh, they don't deserve a right to life because it's natural for us to kill them. Well, it's natural for humans to kill each other. Is that a good reason? No. So you can't use that. It's natural, or it's okay to not give them a right to life because they're less intelligent. Well, is it okay to kill less intelligent humans? No, right? So I'm just arguing that
we'd have no viewers if that were true.
wait, how I didn't follow that one. We would have no viewers. Explain.
If we killed all the dumb people.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not going to call my fucking whole audience dumb. There are some idiots, though. I try to ban them.
I will. Everyone in my chat's stupid. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, I mean, I sometimes get mad at some people in my audience, but generally speaking, they're pretty fucking good. But that's what we all say.
Most of the vegans I've talked to have been respectful. Like Ash Sharp's a vegan. He's very respectful. You've been very respectful. But the horny vegan and militant vegan have just been unbearable.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about that for fun, but obviously, I don't support going around it's just totally ridiculous thing to do.
But do you think, now this is just another one-off thing, do you think that the veganism movement would be more supported and would have less people like, okay, fuck vegans, if there were not people doing like stuff they do?
It's a good,
because it's just those two as an example would, but it's not just them. I'm kidding, guys. You're not dumb.
Yeah,
my chat's yelling at.
There are definitely instances of vegan just behavior that I totally do not support and that can't be doing anything good for the movement. Now, to be fair, I don't know if you can say that about horny vegan. As much as I would never do what he does, and I don't think it's really a moral thing to go around and call people names and shit when it's unprovoked. I'll call people names if they deserve it. Well, you probably will too.
Duh.
Yeah. I do it sometimes. Asshole. Just kidding. Yeah. So with horny vegan, it's a bit of a weird case because who knows how many fucking debates have actually resulted from that guy doing this. So there might be some kind of,
I know at least one.
I know. So, I mean, I can't say it's totally valueless, but what I can say is that I personally would not do that behavior. And I would condemn that behavior. I do condemn that behavior because I don't think it's okay to act like that.
My question was, do you think there would be more support in the vegan movement if people didn't act like he does?
Yeah, I'm trying to answer that. I think it's hard to say with someone like Horny Vegan, because you wonder how much good has come of what he goes around and does. I mean, debates do happen. People do get persuaded in the audience. I usually get a lot of messages after doing these debates. So would there be less people who would hate on vegans? I mean, I want to say that probably it would improve our image if he was not doing that. But I just don't actually have the concrete knowledge to say there isn't some, payoff in terms of like conversion from people being exposed to veganism as a result of his craziness.
Okay. Now real quick, when we go off air, there's something I want to ask you privately, and I'm going to write it down. Please don't let me forget.
Is it about dick size?
Yeah, dude.
Okay, so let's I'll try to remember. I'm a bit bad with the short-term memory. So okay, I guess we may as well just continue on where we're at. And I have a pretty good chunk of free time, so you just let me know when you're wearing out here.
I'm good till about 5:15.
Okay.
So about 35 minutes from now.
All right, well, that is nowhere near enough time to get through all of this, so we'll have stuff to talk about.
We're definitely going to have a part 2 of this. I'm
always down for that. That's fine with me. Okay, so I think I would probably just stay on species. So I thought I got a concession on species, but then you're kind of appealing to species a bit later. So again, like, I'm not saying humans and animals are the same. I'm not saying they deserve all the same rights. I'm just saying you can't want a right for humans and deny it to animals based on a justification you would reject if it was used to deny it to you. It's just that is inconsistent. And when you agree that species itself is not a valid justification, then you can't get out of a question. Like when we start talking about whether using all the body parts is a justification, you can't get out of that, talking about whether that's valid or not by saying, but the species are different, because we've already established that itself is not a valid argument. So adding it doesn't do anything.
We didn't establish that because I didn't directly concede that point to you. Because I'm not going to. Now, what I said was the species are different, and killing something just because it's a different species is not justification. So you trying to springboard that into whatever else.
No, I'm not springboarding anything. I'm just saying you agree. So you just said, just killing based on species, bad justification. So when I ask you, okay, so let's just watch it happen in real time. So if I say to you, let's talk about the the using all the body parts. You would not accept killing a human based on using all the body parts. You think that is a valid justification when it comes to animals, or not?
Killing an animal and using all the body parts is a valid justification because you're not letting it go to waste. That's exactly like the Indians did it. It's exactly like most cultures do it, except us for some reason. We can't figure out how the fuck to do it.
Okay, now I'm gonna point out the appeal to species when it happens. But so now in the human context, you say that's wrong, right? You say killing just because you're going to use all the body parts. That's not a valid justification.
No, I think it is.
Oh, okay. Wait. So you think it's okay to kill humans if you use the whole body?
Animals aren't humans.
Wait. But I'm just talking humans right now. So in the human context, you would say that's not a valid justification.
Killing humans is bad. Killing humans is bad.
But
killing animals is not the same as killing humans.
Agreed, but that's not quite an answer. So what I'm asking is, killing humans on the basis of you're going to use all their body parts. Would you accept that as a moral justification for killing a human?
For killing a human, no, because it's not. Unless you are being attacked by a human.
Yeah, we agree on all that. Yeah, you don't even need to go there. We agree on all that.
There's some extenuating circumstance. It's not okay to kill people.
Yeah, but if
you're hungry and you're out in the woods, because I keep saying this, like I know most of my people who are watching this they probably eat red meat, so this won't resonate with them too much. But if you're out in the woods like I do and you're hunting and you kill a deer, it's more justified to kill a deer and take the meat and take the skin and do stuff with that than killing a deer and taking the head.
Yeah, and it's also...
I don't think that's justified if you're killing... I don't think killing for sport is really justified.
I would agree with you that is more ethical than just killing it and taking the head, but I don't think either are ethical. So that was the point I was making before when I said, killing a human, but I don't even want to go there because you're just going to say humans and animals aren't the same. And that's the appeal to species. So when we're talking about killing because you're going to use the whole body, I agree. If you use the whole body, that's better, whether it's an animal or a human. That's better than not using the whole body. But I don't agree that makes it ethical. So in the human,
so I think that's where our conversation is going to be stuck in a ditch. Then,
well, I don't think
it's
so
ethical to do it. You don't.
But I think I can point out a contradiction with your position. So you think that,
but if you're going to point out the species contradiction, then I wouldn't even bother because it's not the same thing.
I don't know what you mean with the species contradiction. What I'm saying is you're appealing to the argument you're using is we use all the body parts. So you're saying we use all the body parts per se is a valid argument in the animal context, but not in the human context, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so the appeal to species is right there because what you're doing is the only separation between those two contexts is species. So implicitly, you're appealing to species.
Yes, because the species are different.
Yes, and then when we go to the species argument, I think you agree that it's not a valid justification. So I don't know why you would appeal to it, because you would say that you don't think it's moral for an alien to just kill you because you're not their species.
You're painting this picture.
No, I'm not.
I don't think
just dealing with the species.
I think if an alien came down and started killing people just because they're people, it's not okay. But if an alien came down and was like, we got to kill like 3,000 people, I'd be like, okay. Like if their species depends on it, okay.
Yeah, but now the thing is, what you're doing there is you're making the argument more morally gray so as not to just answer.
But that's the whole thing, is this is all morally gray, Isaac.
Well, I think at this point I just have to kind of appeal to the audience to understand the distinction, because I've made it a few times. And again, I'm not trying to be rude. I just don't think that you're acknowledging the distinction. I'm not trying to map the entirety of animal agriculture onto the alien analogy. I'm dealing purely with the element of species justifying murder. So when you start trying to bring in more factors to make it more like what factory farming is,
there are more factors to it.
But that's actually dodging the point that I'm making, because what I'm trying to get at is purely whether species itself is a valid argument, because you fall back to species when we start talking about other justifications, like using all the body.
I don't fall back to it. You do.
No, you do, because when
we brought up humans, when you let me. I thought we had moved past the species. I thought we had moved past the species, but you brought it back up when I said it's valid to use all the body parts. You brought it back up to humans, therefore bringing it back to the justification of species, which I didn't say.
I did bring it back to the justification of species. You didn't say it explicitly, but you did implicitly say it. And again, that's not me reading your subconscious.
All of these are going to be implicitly brought into the justification of species, because that's the whole reason you don't want to kill them, is because they're alive and they have lives. You don't want to kill them.
Okay.
The only justification to do it is that they're cows. We don't kill humans for meat. We kill cows for meat.
Okay. One second.
We haven't figured out how to grow cows in labs. Therefore, we kill the ones that are outside. Yeah. The minute we can figure out how to grow cows in labs, I'll start eating red meat again. But to say that killing the cow and using its body is the same thing as killing a human and using its body is not true.
I'm not saying they're the same thing. So when I say that you're implicitly appealing to species, what I mean specifically by that is when I ask about, like, we're talking about some other argument, like using all the body parts, and then you say that you accept the body part argument in one context, but not the other. And I say that's a contradiction. And you say it's not a contradiction because they're different species. That's not me going back to species. That's you appealing to species. And then I point it out.
No, you definitely brought it up as species because you brought up humans into it.
Okay, well,
I never said it was humans.
Well,
if you want to have the conversation to say the killing is bad, no matter what the species, we can have that. But if I say the killing is justified because you use the entire body, and you say, well, it's not justified if you do it to humans, that's you bringing the species.
Wait, no. Well, let me hit that, because when you say the reason that using all the body parts is justified in one context but not the other is species, you're not appealing to the body parts anymore. You're appealing to the species. You're saying that's the distinction that makes it valid. The argument from body parts, that alone clearly doesn't do it if you have to go to species and point to something else.
So you're saying that if I have to bring up the fact that it's a different species, the argument therefore becomes invalid.
No, I mean, I think that, but it's not necessarily that.
But what about when you do it then? Does it somehow become invalid then?
How do I do it? What are you saying exactly? I don't know.
Because I never said that it's okay to kill deer just because they're deer. I said it's more okay to kill deer because you use every part of the body.
Yeah.
And then you immediately came back with, well, would you be okay if it were humans?
Yeah, but I'm not appealing to species in that context. I'm trying to point out that in two different contexts, you'll use and reject the same argument. So when you say,
because you can do that when you talk about two different contexts.
And what's the difference between the two contexts?
The species.
Yes, so you're appealing to species.
If you want to bring up killing is no, listen. If you want to bring up killing is wrong, no matter what, we can have that talk. But if you want to bring up killing is wrong sometimes, but if it was a human, it's even more wrong, then that's just an argument we're going to be talking in circles about.
Well, again, we've already gotten some level of agreement, so I'm not sure it's destined to go in circles.
There's not a ton of stuff you and I disagree about. Like we're both super against factory farming, but I haven't taken the full plunge into vegetarianism or veganism.
Yeah, and I'm just pointing out that that's inconsistent, and we're looking at the justifications you're using. So we agreed that good life, that's not going to do it. I thought we got agreement on species, but now you're appealing to it again when you say that.
No. Species is invalid. The argument in and of itself saying something is.
Yeah, wait. Just let me say this, because if you say species is invalid, then let me get back to exactly where we were. The body parts argument, you can't split the context based on species if species is not a valid trait, because then we go back to species argument. So what's your answer to the? Oh, am I still alive?
Yeah, you're here.
Sorry, I just thought I dropped. What's your answer to the body part question without appealing to separate contexts based on species? Because as you've just said, species alone is not going to do it.
My answer to the body part question is that has never changed. That part never changed. Killing a deer or killing, I don't know, pick an animal.
Sure.
That's not endangered.
Well, yeah.
Killing a bear because you're going to use every part of its body is more justified than anything factory farming or any other reason. If you're going to kill a deer just to kill it, that's bad.
Okay.
If we're going to somehow start factory farming deer, that's bad.
Okay.
But if you go out and you kill a deer and you take its body and you use the body and you don't let any of it go to waste and you put it back into nature as you should, that's more justified.
Yeah, of course it's more justified, but that doesn't mean it's
because
justified.
That was my original argument.
Yeah, and I agree with that phrasing of it when you say it's more justified, but that doesn't mean it's justified. And my question is whether it's justified. So I don't mean, again, like I'm not trying to be rude, but I do need to call this what it is, which is a red herring. So when I ask you if it's justified or not, and you say it's more justified than something that's worse, that's not actually an answer to my question.
Maybe I'm not understanding your question then.
So if I ask you if X is justified and you say X is better than Y, well, that's not an answer. You've just said some other statement.
No, I clearly think it's justified.
Okay, so wait. So killing because you're going to use all the body parts is justified in the animal context.
Yes.
Killing because you're going to use all the body parts is not justified in the human context.
Correct.
So you're simultaneously using and rejecting the justification that it's ethical because of all the body parts. So you have some options there. You can say,
because now what's the difference between those two?
Okay, well, wait. When you do that, that is where you appeal to species, which you have already taken off the table.
I don't think I did.
Okay, well, when you try to say,
I said killing is just because it's the species is wrong.
Killing just,
and I'm not going out and killing deer just because they're deer, even if I use the whole body part.
Okay, wait. But when you say killing just because of the species, and then we talked about a situation, using the whole body parts, and you can't justify it on the basis of just using the body parts. You're like, well, fuck that. It's something else. It's the species. Then the only factor that you're adding to that situation is a factor that you've said on its own does not work. So that doesn't equalize the context and make it valid in one, but not the other.
Because they're not the same thing.
No one thinks they're the same thing.
You I think you lean kind of right, don't you?
I poll as a centrist. I lean right on things like immigration or like law and order and stuff like that. I'm pretty left on a lot of like social stuff. Like I'm pro gay and trans and all that shit.
Okay, so let's just say. Okay, so you're nationalistic-ish when it comes to immigration. Like you want like
absolutely. I want what?
Okay.
Sorry, wait.
Immigration.
Yeah, we're in Canada. We have a good point system here. I don't know a whole lot about it, but this is the kind of thing we want. We don't want mass immigration from the third world. Very bad idea.
Okay, so why don't you want them?
Well, you just look at the stats of what has happened in Europe. You just get lots of rape. You get lots of murder.
They're a different culture, right?
Sorry? Yeah. Oh, yeah. They have different culture, different moral systems, different beliefs. They're just different. Their morality does not cohere with ours. They don't work together.
So you think that the Western world as it stands and the Middle Eastern world do not exist together well?
As a general statement, sure, but that doesn't mean there aren't specific people who I'd be more than happy to have here.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just trying to put this in another frame of mind. So the context of a terrorist attack happening in Quebec. I think you're Canadian because you say a boot.
And you say Quebec.
And what do you call it? And he died. Yeah, I do tend to agree. Arguing ethics is bad sometimes.
It dropped right when I said Quebec. We say Quebec.
Quebec.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
So if a terrorist attack happened in Quebec, and a terrorist attack happened in Uzbekistan,
yeah,
which one's worse?
Well, I mean, assuming that
to you,
well, assuming that the death caused is equal, the situations are the same. I don't think that one is worse than the other.
So you don't think it's worse that this happens in Quebec than if it happens someplace you've never heard of before?
Well, it depends how you want to look at that, because just like...
So context matters.
Well, of course, context matters. But when you're saying that it's worse, like there's reasons that it could be bad to have it happen in Quebec. I mean, if it's happening in Quebec, then you know that somehow these terrorists are getting over the oceans, in sufficient numbers to actually have an attack work. So
I think Trudeau's trying.
I don't know enough about his immigration. He probably wants to take in large quantities from places we shouldn't. And also a really good point I heard Molyneux make the other day, who I don't agree with all the time. It's like, your money's worth way the fuck more over there. Where do you think you can do more good for these people? Paying their money, giving them actual shit in their own countries, or bringing them all here? But so what I'm saying is, if the situations are completely equalized, then no, one's not worse than the other. But if there's some, relevant contextual factor, like, the fact that it happens in Quebec means that now they're getting overseas. You could say that might make it worse in some way. But the death itself, it's not worse based on the location it's happening. No.
Okay, I'm just trying to get you to admit that context matters, because I think an attack that happens in Cleveland, even if it's 1/10 of the death rate, is worse than an attack that happens in the middle of Iraq.
Okay, and
because
why
in the Western world?
Yeah, and why would you say that?
You don't like that because it's not good for the Western world. This is their culture. This is diversity I don't want.
Well, obviously, yeah.
And so I think for that happening here, is that culture coming to us? So context matters.
Yeah.
This whole diatribe has just been to get you to say that context matters.
Oh, well, of course context matters. You could have just asked me that. And with that, what you're doing there,
I kind of wanted to pick your brain a little bit too.
It's all good. What you're doing there is like you're pointing to a specific difference between the two situations that actually makes one worse than the other. I mean, the fact that the Western world is, largely terrorism free, and then you see terrorism in the West, I mean, that says something worse than it happening somewhere where it always happens. It means that the problem is permeating into other areas of the world. That's really bad. But if we don't specify the location and we just say a terrorist attack happens in location A and B, and they're both equal in magnitude, which is worse? You can't say one is worse.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'll give you that.
Yeah. So
I still think it's worse because it's here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you talk about
I can understand the inconsistency in that.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if you're willing to look at those kind of contextual factors, then I would say it's probably worse to have it happen here, because now you're talking about something happening where it normally doesn't happen, which signals the start of a whole new problem.
Because the context is different.
Yeah, because you can actually point to a relevant contextual factor. I mean, if every contextual factor you point to is irrelevant or produces contradictions, then it wouldn't be any better here. So
the context of the species being different does matter.
Well, it certainly matters. It's part of the picture. But when you say that you would reject the argument, if you just make the argument they're of a different species, or X is a different species, whether X is animals, humans, aliens, whatever, therefore it's okay to kill them, then you can't simultaneously say species is a good reason to kill them. So when we go to the example with you're using the whole body, currently when we talk about that hypothetical, the only justification that's on the table is you're using all the body parts. Now, you reject that in one context and accept it in the other, and you do that on the basis of species. So now the only two factors that are part of that equation are species and using all the body parts. And species, you point out, that on its own doesn't do anything. So it's like adding one to each side. It doesn't actually change the balance of the situation at all.
But I think it is.
Pardon?
I think it's 100% possible.
Sure.
To say that it is okay to do this to animals, but not to humans.
Well, I mean, that's just, you haven't given a specific reason, right? So that structure, what you just said right there, you could just reverse it and say, I think this is okay to do to humans, but not to aliens. So that's just an appeal to, I subjectively find it okay. So you'd have to go beyond that with like actual reasons, like you were doing before, like, oh, it's species, or, oh, it's reusing the whole body part, or whole body. And those specific reasons, you can't use ones that produce contradictions. So species produce the contradiction unless you accept the alien holocaust. So you can't appeal to species when you're trying to differentiate the two situations.
Okay, see, you just called it a holocaust. That's not what we're doing.
Well,
we don't just go and kill cows and don't replenish their population.
Well, wait. The definition.
M16's like, ha, 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 ha.
Wait. But the definition is just destruction or killing on a mass scale. So but it is destruction and killing on a mass scale.
What about the construction of the species by replenishing their numbers? For every cow that's killed, one's born, right? We're not killing the newborns. We're not trying to erase cows.
Aren't there maybe even more that are born? Aren't we making more and more meat? Maybe we're making less. I don't know. But either way, the point.
I'd argue we're probably making less.
What you're saying is it's not a holocaust because we're replenishing them. Well, I mean, first of all, I don't know if we'd ever accept that in the human context, but it still fits the dictionary. It still fits the dictionary definition, though. So you can say, I choose to reject that definition of a holocaust, but do you deny that we're killing animals on a mass scale?
We're not committing a holocaust, but we are killing animals.
And are we killing on a mass scale?
Current inventory statistics from the USDA, blah, 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 show that there are 9.3 million dairy cows and 30.5 million beef cows. I wonder if I can get a...
Yeah, so surely when the numbers are in the billions, you would agree it's a mass scale, yeah?
No, not billion, million.
No, it should be billions.
No, it's definitely million.
Whoa. The total numbers for animals killed should be in the billions. It's not...
no, I just searched cow population in the United States.
Oh, yeah. But the amount killed per year, I don't know about with cows. I know with chickens, I'm almost certain it's in the billions. But
absolutely. Yeah, chickens has got to be just insane.
But just to be clear, I mean, this is just a semantic point. And I think that I think that the reason you initially objected to it, you started talking about M16s and stuff, is you think I'm drawing a direct parallel to the Jewish Holocaust. Now, there are things you can make that kind of argument that it's similar to the Jewish Holocaust. You can talk about the trucks that transport them. You can talk about the branding. You can talk about the confinement, the poor conditions, the disease. But
those
I'm
are
not
both
doing.
things
Wait.
Agree that are bad.
Of course they are, but you denied it's a Holocaust. And when I'm pointing out that the dictionary definition of Holocaust applies to what we're doing to animals. There's no way to say it's not slaughter on a mass scale, and that's the dictionary definition.
The dictionary definition is destruction. We're not destroying the population. We're keeping it steady.
I'm actually looking at it right now. So destruction or slaughter on a mass scale, especially caused by fire or nuclear war. So destruction or slaughter, and it's clearly slaughter on a mass scale. And you could also say it's destruction because you're destroying their lives, even if you're replenishing. So surely you would agree it's slaughter on a mass scale, correct?
Yeah, it is slaughter on a mass scale.
Stop right there. So wait. That's a Holocaust. That's the definition of a Holocaust.
No, it's not, because it says caused by fire or nuclear war.
No. That's just at the end. That's especially. It doesn't have to be caused by fire or nuclear war to be a Holocaust. This definition is just destruction or slaughter on a mass scale. That's especially.
But slaughter on a mass scale, you'd have to there have to be some end game for it, right? You would think. Otherwise, why, if we were trying to commit a Holocaust, why would we keep making more?
Well, I mean, when you say Holocaust, you're associating like the Jewish Holocaust, and you're thinking it's got to be an attempt to exterminate
the Celtic Holocaust. It was the attempt to exterminate the Celts.
Yeah, but the thing is, we're not looking at that. We're looking at just literally the dictionary definition. And this is also,
if you want to go, good.
Well, I was just going to say it's also a semantic point, so it's not the most important point, but I do not see how you can say it's not a Holocaust, because it is slaughter on a mass scale, and that's the definition of Holocaust.
I see the definition you were looking at, but I'm on the Merriam-Webster, and it's a little different.
Wait. There's multiple definitions, but you must agree that it fits certain definitions of a Holocaust.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
I'll give you that.
Totally.
Because I never put my backing. Yeah, that's not. We're not keeping that in my chat. Someone just spamming nigger over and over. Like, no.
Wow, that's a strange thing.
It's someone I've never seen before too, so it's probably just some rando who found it. Anyway,
some guy tells me who spelt my name wrong, stop being nice. It's like, no, I'm gonna be nice to anyone who's nice to me, man.
Yeah, we're not going at each other's throats here. We're having a fiery debate or a discussion. We're having a spirited discussion.
Yeah, it's a discussion. If it were a debate, I would have taken the first point and literally hammered it till you conceded or hung up. Debates are a bit different than discussions. It's true.
Yeah, no.
But well, I've talked a lot. You can say something if you want, but what I will go back to once I have the floor is the killing based on body part usage, and then the fact that separation based on species is just appealing to species, which you've already taken off the table. But you can say whatever you want before we go back to that.
I completely forgot I was going to say, so just go ahead.
Okay, well, I'll just repeat myself. So you reject killing based purely on using body parts in the human context. You accept killing based purely on using body parts in the animal context. So you simultaneously are using and rejecting the argument, I'm using the body parts. So then to justify that double standard, you're saying it's not a double standard because one is humans and one is animals. Well, then the component that you're adding is species. And we've already taken species off the table as a justification per se.
Okay, I'm following you, but again, it's contextual. Like this is what I said would be the better part to argue, would be the gray areas. Because there's already certain things there's certain points that you firmly have in your grasp.
Like what?
You definitely have the moral high ground. There's no question, and I've never said anything to the opposite in a serious way, that there is a moral high ground, that veganism has the moral high ground. There's no question about that in my mind.
Just a little tiny comment. I'm not seeking that admission, though. I know we have the moral high ground. I appreciate that. But the point I'm seeking is that the counterposition is actually logically inconsistent. Not just that veganism is the high ground.
Go try to tell somebody who just has no real stake in it that it's logically inconsistent.
What do you mean?
Like just somebody who's at a restaurant eating a steak and they walk up to them and
A
go,
literal
that's
steak.
logically inconsistent, and walk away. They're gonna be like, okay.
Yep. So
cool.
So here I agree, and here I would go back to the distinction between a pragmatic and a principled argument, right? So I'm not saying that going and telling people they're logically inconsistent is the best pragmatic, real world, practical strategy to make people go vegan. I'm saying in principle, it factually is true to say that it's logically inconsistent.
It might be logically inconsistent, but most people just don't care.
Yeah, so that's
like,
that's
I can go ahead, just go ahead.
Well, I'm gonna let you talk. I've talked a lot. What do you want to say?
I was gonna say it's logically inconsistent for some of these things, but other things it's context. Context absolutely matters, and you've already admitted that context matters. Killing a human and killing a deer or a bear are different things.
Very.
They're not the same thing.
Yeah, of course.
So the context that they are different might be bringing up species, but that is the difference between them.
Well, if the thing you appeal to, like the difference that you're using, the trait, if it's species, then you would have to accept stuff like the alien Holocaust as moral. Not accept as in I couldn't fight back, accept it as a moral position.
But I'm not saying that it's okay to kill them just because they're deer.
No, I understand, but and here's the crux of it, right? Is when we talk about the using them based on their body parts, you don't acknowledge that it's a double standard to simultaneously appeal to and reject the justification of body part usage, though. And you say that the reason for that is because they're different species. So when you do that, you're adding species per se on its own in of itself as a justification. And you've acknowledged that species on its own in of itself is not a justification. So you can't appeal to it.
No. Species on its own, in and of itself, saying that I'm going to kill this just because it's this is not a justification.
Okay, so adding that in itself to a context that doesn't change it.
You do get to say I'm going to go kill a deer because I need the food and I'm going to use its body for clothing and tools. That becomes justified because you are using it. Well, if aliens, and I'm going to take the piss out of you real quick. If aliens came down to Earth, and they said, we're going to take 3,000 humans and we're going to kill them because we need to, we would find a way to give them 3,000 humans. People might go, I don't like it, but this could mean their survival. So let's give them 3,000 humans. Yeah, as a society, I think we would do that.
Well, it's a collectivist argument. I mean, I would personally, I'd have some serious ethical issues with that, but that is a morally more gray situation, right? So when you go to that, that's not really a straightforward answer to the appeal to species, right? So that's appeal to species plus you're adding other contextual factors like, well, they're going to all
because
die.
There are other contextual factors.
Yeah, and that's fine. And we can go those contextual factors one by one, right? So
I think we're going to have to go those at another stream, though.
Have you hit the end of your time?
Yeah, I got to get out of here in like 10 minutes. I didn't realize we'd be going so long.
No worries, man. Well, good convo. We can do some closing statements. You want first or last?
Go ahead. I'm not going to argue with you, so just whatever you want to say, go ahead.
Well, I want you to get one in too, so we can just both establish where we're at, if you're okay with that.
Well, where we're at is this. I think this has been a very good conversation as far as most of these things tend to go. I thought yours would.
I'd say better than most.
I thought yours with Friended was a little hairy because I don't know if he was trolling or he just genuinely didn't understand what you were trying to say about the in-group out-group thing.
Oh, I know.
But I think this has been a good conversation. And a lot of the oh wait, shit. Let me do two things real quick because I got like 2 super chats and I said I would answer the super chat questions.
Go for it.
Are you there?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, sorry. My fucking computer just like dies whenever I open up the photo viewer. I don't know why.
Oh yeah.
Can we answer 2 questions real quick?
Yeah, man, go for it.
Actually, this isn't a question. This is $5 from Reverend saying the death penalty isn't an equivalent argument Yeah, I know. That probably was a bad choice for me to bring up.
Mm.
And $5 from Alenska. Since deer hunting actually helps the deer, what's your views on that?
Is that to me?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sold on the idea that it helps the deer.
I think it helps with overpopulation.
I mean, I would need to really know the details there. If it's truly a situation where it's like you're facing an environmental disaster and the only solution is to kill a deer, that's one thing.
I know it gets to that point sometimes up here in Ohio to where the deer are just like, they end up getting themselves killed by starvation because it's just overpopulated.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, I don't think it's okay to just kill something because it's on a trajectory to die. So, like, if a human's on a trajectory to die from cancer, it's not okay to just step in and be like, oh, well, you're going to die, so it's okay for me to just kill you. So I would apply the same logic with the deer. But if you're talking about a situation where it's actually necessary to preserve the ecosystem and there's no other options, you can't relocate, you can't introduce natural predators, then, yeah, I mean, there's maybe a hypothetical where that's justified. I've never seen one in practice, though.
I don't know what predators that would survive here solely on deer all year. Like maybe coyotes, but we don't have a lot of those. Yeah, I guess she says in the chat, if we don't hunt, the deer starve, and then they end up getting inbreeding, which gets bad. I would assume it gets really bad.
I'm not sure how starving leads to inbreeding. So again, answering that question in practice,
different.
Yeah, like
they end up inbreeding and they starve.
Yeah, so to answer that in practice, I mean, I just don't know what specific situation you're talking about. If it's like, I can answer it in principle though, which is if it's truly necessary to preserve the ecosystem, you're going to have the ecosystem destroyed. You could justify it probably. But the idea that that's a specific practical case that exists somewhere, I'm a bit skeptical of that. I think people have a personal interest in hunting animals and they try to say stuff like that to justify it a lot of the time. So I would need to see a really clear, concrete argument for that. And I would also point out that talking about something like that, where there's some good outcome to it and it might have actually moral value in some sense, that's the kind of gray area that I like to go to after getting basic stuff down. Because if someone doesn't agree that it's wrong to stab it for, you know, pretty much no reason or really bad reasons, like I'm going to use all the body parts, then you can't talk about more complex stuff and expect it to be a serious conversation.
Okay. All right.
Anything else?
Anything you want to say? Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, I just think this is a really good stream. I think I kind of took the piss out of you in the beginning by saying that I don't eat red meat and I don't agree with factory farming in any way, shape, or form. I thought you thought I was going to come in saying something completely different.
What do you mean? I'm not sure. I didn't even.
I thought you
that as mockery.
No, it's not mockery.
Isn't that what
I'm being
the
genuine when I say. Well, some people say taking the piss. That's what it means. What I think of it is, it's like taking the wind out of your sails.
Oh man, I don't know if you're using that term right.
I might not be, but
I think
we'll stick with wind out of your sails then.
Oh, yeah. You thought you were just going to say something and then you'd have some position of like, well, I mean, I'm already halfway to veganism. How's he going to argue against it?
No, I thought that you were coming in here expecting me to be like, well, eating meat's good, so it's okay.
No, I heard you say that you don't eat a whole lot of meat. I to be honest, really did not know what you were going to do. But came in with an open mind. Closing statement, I would basically just say, you know, I also think it's been productive-ish. Happy to do it again. Definitely appreciate Sinatra coming on.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna have to.
Definitely enjoyable. He's a nice guy. And I would just say, as for the actual justifications that have been proposed, I don't remember them all, but we've got killing based on giving a good life. I think that produced an obvious contradiction with what we accept for humans. Killing based on species, same thing. Killing based on using all the body parts, same thing. And then the others that we didn't get around to, like the ones from your stream, like killing based on thought. Well, I mean, animals definitely have thought, but, you know, same with experience, same with aspirations. So I've not seen a justification that doesn't produce a contradiction as far as I can tell. So that would be my closing.
Okay. We're definitely going to have to do this again. But when you end it, I just want you to stick around for a minute because I do want to ask you something. I wrote it down so I didn't forget.
Sure. All right. Well, I think we'll call it there. It's been a good talk. Nice seeing you chat, and have a good day.
Hey guys, let us know if you think we missed anything. in the chat. Just tweet us or something.
Okay, going off now.